world has certainly opened up a whole new world for me. And part of that world includes children's books. One of the best ones I've found was written right here in Newfoundland. Hairs on Bears has got to be one of the most rollicking rhymes, one of the funniest, fuzziest children's books I've encountered so far. Just listen to this. Hairs on fingers, hairs on toes, hairs right up Aunt Bertha's nose. Achoo! Now you see them, now you don't. Now guests come and now they won't. Hairs on blankets, hairs on chairs, hairs on bureaus, hairs on bears, hairs on Mum. She throws a fit. Where's the dog? Get rid of it. Hairs on sweaters, hairs on suits, hairs on Uncle Watson's boots, hairs on zippers, hairs on pleats, hairs on ladies and their seats. Hairs float up and hairs float down. Hairs on Mr. Sherman's crown. Hairs on slippers, hairs on socks, hairs on Lego, hairs on locks, hairs on pictures, hairs on desks, hairs on Grandpa's mouth. What pests! Dog, you are no doggone good. I should sell you. Yes, I should. Well, if you want to find out the fate of this remarkably hairy and shedding dog, you'll have to get your own copy of Hairs on Bears. Geraldine Ryan-Lush is the author.
I came up with this story when my children were very much younger than what they are now, and the household was quite chaotic, as is shown in the illustrations and throughout the book, the whole chaotic atmosphere around the house with our super-spirited shedding dog. And it just sort of lay around in a drawer for a long time, and I took it out one day and said, well, you know, this is cute. I think I'll market this. And I read it to some children in school. They liked it. They liked the rhythm and so on, and they identified with the dog as well. So it got published.
It did, and it's published with absolutely wonderful illustrations by Normand Cousineau. You must have a big hairy dog as well, because he seemed to get right into this.
Well, I've never met him. I've never met the dog, but I can certainly get a sense of how he feels about his dog and what the dog is like. And I think we both kind of knew where the other was coming from in the way we wanted to portray our animals, our specific dogs. So it worked out quite well. It meshed really well.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because as you say, you've never been face to face with this man yet.
No.
You managed to. Was it hard at times to get the illustrations to match the poetry, or did it just happen right off?
Well, the first thing is when you see the very first set of roughs, and you can tell by the way they're rendered if they're going to work. And then, of course, all the rest is filled in after. I knew the first time I saw his roughs that, yes, this would work, because they were lively, they were joyful, they were action-oriented, which, you know, you just can't have just pictures on the page in a picture book. With children, especially in a really involved spirit story like that, you have to have chaos, and he seemed like he could show this chaos in the book.
It's interesting. You wrote this poem because of your experience with your dog Scamp, and a lot of children's stories do come from everyday life. But how do you know when it's going to work? How some mundane everyday thing will really translate into a good children's rhyme or children's story?
Well, I think you said a key word there, a mundane thing. A lot of mundane things in everyday life are exactly what writers write about. You write what you know, and but it's the way you handle it. It's the fresh approach you take to that. I think with this story, it's rhythmic. It's easy on the ear. It bears repeated readings and so on, which young primary children, or preschool children, it's a sound and sense kind of book. It's a look and listen type story, which is what appeals to young children, and it just flowed. I mean, I started off just writing something just for the fun of it, and it worked out to be an appealing story. and something that I was living through, you know, identified with very much.
Dog hair everywhere.
Yes, everywhere. I mean, when it says slippers and socks, I mean, my two boys were constantly roughhousing with our dog, and there was just hairs everywhere. I used to pick up the socks, and they were just, it's like prickly porcupines, and I was trying to get them clean, so I certainly lived it.
Yeah, I guess in a sense this is one way of working out your own anxiety about the dog and his hair. Is
exasperation.
Exasperation, yeah. And maybe you can get a nice poem out of it.
Yes.
Perhaps this should be recommended for anyone who's a grown-up who has a hairy, shedding dog.
Exactly. Exactly.
Put your feet up, read this, and laugh.
Have a laugh. Yes, that's exactly what it's intended for.
Well, Geraldine, thank you very much for coming in and talking about the story.
I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Hairs on Bears was written by Geraldine Ryan-Lush and illustrated by Norman Cousineau, and it's